Every Sunday morning, this lands in my inbox. It's a complete summary of everything worth my time from dozens of newsletters and podcasts that I subscribe to. I didn't write this. I didn't even curate it. An AI agent did it for me. My notes, they organize themselves. New connections surface automatically. Action items get extracted without me lifting a finger. And when I do want to share what I'm learning, the content, well, it practically writes itself. These are 3 different agentic applications, 3 completely different tools, and one that even runs while I'm asleep. Today I'm going to show you exactly how I built each one of these, and hopefully it inspires you to try something yourself. For those who don't know me, my name is Jason Sear, and I'm currently the VP and Head of Design for Cisco's security and AI businesses. I've spent 25 years learning to build software that people actually want to use. This channel, it's where I share the things that I found that actually work. It's for designers, product managers, and engineers who care about creating impact, not just shipping features. So if any of that resonates with you, maybe consider subscribing. Okay, let's get into it. I'm going to start with a confession. I subscribe to way too much stuff. Newsletters, podcasts, YouTube channels, you name it. I probably hit subscribe at some point thinking I'll definitely read that. But spoiler alert, I didn't read it. Most of it just piles up unread. And the stuff that's actually valuable, it ends up buried somewhere that I'm never able to find again. Add to that another problem. I take notes, lots of notes, constantly. Ideas, quotes, things I'm learning. But they live in this crazy, messy graveyard of good intentions. There's no connections there. There's no insights being derived. Just a growing pile of text that I probably never look at again. So what did I do to solve these problems? I did what any reasonable person would do. I built some robots to handle it for me. But here's what makes this actually useful for you. I built each of these agents with a completely different tool. I wanted to try visual workflows. I wanted to test out sub-agents in Claude Code. And I just wanted to build something that was more of a polished app without writing any code. I'm going to show you all 3 of these. One, I'm going to show you my weekly content summary agent, which I built with N8N, which is a visual automation workflow tool that connects to my Gmail and runs on a particular schedule. I'm also going to show you my knowledge management agent, which was built with Claude Code's sub-agent capabilities. It only took about 10 minutes to set this up, and now it completely manages my entire Obsidian note-taking system. And lastly, I'm going to show you my content curation app, which is built with Google's new Antigravity tool. It's a real application interface that helps me turn what I'm watching on YouTube into content that I can share in my newsletter or on LinkedIn. 3 tools, 3 different builds, 1 complete system. By the end, you're going to have everything that you need to be able to build your own version of these. So let's start where everything begins, and that's with the information that comes into my system. This was the first problem I solved, which was this idea of a newsletter graveyard. I was subscribed to probably 30 or 40 different newsletters, all from incredibly smart people writing really smart things, and I was maybe reading 1 or 2 of them. The rest of them were just sitting there making me feel absolutely guilty every time I opened my inbox that I wasn't paying more attention to this content. The same thing was happening with podcasts. I'd save episodes with good intentions, but then I'd never go back and listen to them completely. What I actually needed wasn't more discipline. I needed some sort of a filter, something that would review everything ahead of time, coming in and tell me, hey, this week, these are the most important things that you should look at. The rest you can skip. So I built exactly that. For this, I chose N8N because it's visual. You can literally see the logic as a flowchart. It connects to Gmail natively, which is where all of my newsletters land. And it runs on a schedule. So every Saturday night, it does its thing. And Sunday morning, I have my summary. If you've never done automation before, N8N is a great place to start. You're not writing code. You're just simply connecting these boxes together. Let me show you how it works. Okay, so this is N8N. And you can see that it's a workflow tool that allows you to stitch together all these various different nodes. You can add new nodes to your canvas. There's all sorts of different items. You can connect them together so that information flows through. And if you double click on any one of these nodes, you can configure details that are associated with it. So this one is really quite simple. It starts with just a trigger node. So this is just set to go off at a particular time, every Saturday night in this case, and that just starts the workflow. Then the first thing that it does is it connects into my Gmail account and it looks for anything that matches what might be a podcast or a newsletter or some sort of thought leadership content. It creates a clean list of all the things that it thinks that it finds. Then it goes back to Gmail and pulls the detail of all of those emails and puts all of this into sort of a big data file. Then it passes that data file into my content analysis agent, which is connected to OpenAI ChatGPT model. And if I open this up, you can take a look at the system message, which is you're an expert content curator specializing in business and thought leadership content. Analyze these emails to identify valuable learning opportunities, focus on strategic insights, blah, blah, blah. It needs to be applicable for a design, a VP, etc. This is just so that the model knows exactly what I'm looking for. It will go through and it'll process all of those emails, and then it'll collect all of that analysis into a big, essentially, data file. And then that data file gets passed in to another agent, which is a prioritization agent. And it's going to look at all of those different things that it found in my email inbox and prioritize them based on what it thinks are the most important things that I should look at. Then it's going to format that into an email and it's going to send that email to me. The key insight here, and this took me a few iterations to get right, is not that I'm asking for a summary of everything. I'm asking for an editorial decision. And that's what actually makes this valuable. It's a filter. And then all of that gets compiled into a single email that lands in my inbox Sunday morning. Here's what it actually looks like. So you can see that the various different sources are listed. It gives me the key takeaways, and it even suggests which ones I should prioritize. Now, one thing I learned the hard way is not to try and summarize everything equally. The first version I built gave me these massive summaries that were almost as overwhelming as the original emails. The breakthrough was adding that filter step. So not just summarize this, but is this worth my time? And if so, why? That single change actually made this really useful. Okay, so now we have this information coming in and it's being filtered, but it still needs somewhere to go. And that brings me to my second agent, which is and it's based on a completely different way of building. I use Obsidian for basically all my note taking, meeting notes, ideas, things I've learned, project documentation, you name it. And for a while, it was great until it wasn't. And then it became a mess because I had notes everywhere. There were no connections between them. They weren't being filed in the right place in the system. I'd have an idea, I'd write it down, and then I'd completely forget that it existed. 3 months later, I'd have the same idea again and write a new note. The whole point of a second brain is that it's just supposed to surface insights. Mine was just storage. What I needed was something that could actually work with my notes, organize them, find the connections that I missed, pull out the action items, and surface patterns. So I built a team of agents to do it. For this, I chose Claude Code because it's conversational and Claude Code has the notion of subagents. So I didn't have to write a specification or design a particular workflow. I just literally described what I wanted and iterated through things using dialogue. And because it works with my local files, which is what Obsidian also works with, it can read my notes, it can create new ones, it can add links, and it can reorganize things. It's not just analyzing text, it's actually managing my system and understanding it. And this is where the managing a team mindset really clicked for me, because I'm not prompting a tool. I'm actually delegating to a collaborator or a team of collaborators. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so let's fire up Claude Code. And if I go into agents, I can see all the different agents that I have running here. So I've got something that manages my action items, something that goes through my daily notes, something that creates cross-linking between my notes, something that does proactive research based on things that it's seeing in my notes. It's got one that's just generally trying to organize my notes, something that's trying to synthesize insights. You can see there's this huge list of a team of agents that are working on all of the data and insight that is my knowledge base and my note system. And this took like no time to set up. All you do is you go in to create a new agent, and it leads you through the process. So you can set it up for a particular project or as a more general personal agent. I am going to generate with Claude because that's the easiest way to do it. And then I just describe what my agent wants to do. And the rest, it just sets up for you automatically. So it's super, super easy to create this team of agents. Right, so here you can see, here's a note after an agent has worked on it. See how it's got all these links. I didn't create all those. The agent went and found those connections that I had missed, and it added them in. And this is a note that contains a whole bunch of action items that it has found and pulled out of my vault in various different places. I didn't have to manually extract these. They just appeared for me. So it's super valuable. And here's the thing that surprised me about building it this way is the conversation that I was having with Claude Code. The conversation actually forced me to clarify what I wanted. And when you're designing a workflow visually, it's easy to just connect the boxes and see what happens. But when you're describing it in words, it's more like, I want it to find connections, but not obvious ones. I want it to prioritize recent notes, but not ignore old ones. You have to think through the logic a little bit. And I think that was really valuable. And that's when I realized this is more like management than programming. I'm giving direction, I'm setting priorities, and I'm reviewing the output. It's the same skills that I use at work leading a design team, just applied to AI. And I think that's really interesting. Okay, so all this information comes in, it gets processed and organized and stored in my notes systems. And then there's one more important step, which is getting it back out. Because what's the point of learning all this stuff if you never really use it or never really share it? This year, I've been trying really hard to share more of my thought leadership content. And at least that's the goal, is to share what I'm learning, post on LinkedIn, write newsletters, and just stay visible in the community. I'll be honest, it can be a lot of work, especially on top of a full-time day job. Not that the ideas part is difficult. I have plenty of ideas. It's more the execution, taking those rough thoughts and ideas and turning them into polished content and posts, finding the right hook, making it actually look good. This can take a long time. It sometimes can take forever, and I never really have forever. So I kept falling into this trap where I'd learn interesting things, but never really share them. I needed something that could help me go from interesting things that I learned to ready to publish it without it taking hours. And so for this one, I chose a tool called Antigravity, which is from Google. And it's essentially their IDE or integrated development environment. But it's an AI native or an agentic first IDE, which is really interesting. Antigravity is different from the other two tools. It's not an automation tool like N8N, and it's not a conversational tool like Claude Code. It's actually an application builder. So what I created is essentially a content creation application. It monitors all the YouTube channels that I care about. It downloads and reviews new videos and gives me summaries with timestamps for all the most relevant sections. It then can help me draft posts that I can share on LinkedIn or use that content and insights in my newsletter. It's definitely the most polished of the three applications, and it has a real interface that I can use. It's not just like a background process like the other ones were. So let me show you what this one looks like. Okay, so in its simplest form, Antigravity is a lot like Cursor. It's an IDE. It is a development environment. You have all of your files listed on one side. You have, a content canvas where you're working in the middle. You've got a terminal, and you've got an AI assistant on the side. Now, that in itself works like Cursor or any of the other tools that you're used to, but it's the agent manager that I found most interesting. And when you go into the agent manager, there's a couple things that it does a really good job of. One is it gives you an inbox of all the agents and the tasks that are working for you right now. So you can see that right now, all of my agents are sitting idle. It gives me a summary of the last task that they've done for me, and I can go in and inspect artifacts. And that's the other piece of this that I think is really interesting, which is the notion of artifacts. So if I come in here to this view of this one workspace where an agent has been performing a number of different tasks, I can go and look at the artifacts that it's created. So it has an implementation plan. It has a task list that it's working through. It has a walkthrough document that explains what it's done. And then it keeps track of all these artifacts as it's working. So if I go down to, you'll see this one is actually a video. And so this is the agent testing the application that it had written to make sure that it's working. And it can give me a snippet of that video to show it that it's behaving as expected. So this is super cool. Now, if I go over to that application itself, here's what I built. So it's a curator tool. It's got a dashboard. I can configure sources, which are all the YouTube channels that I want it to monitor for me. And then it starts with discovery. So it goes and it discovers anytime new videos have been published for the channels that I'm following. If I want to curate the content from one of these videos, so like, for example, I'm interested in this How I AI podcast, I can add it to my queue. When I go into curation, these are the videos that are queued up for analysis. So you can see this is the one that I just entered. And if I were to go in here and run this deep analysis, now that's going to go and it's going to download the video. It's going to upload that video to an AI model to completely analyze that video. And if I close out of here, we'll leave that analyzing, and it can take a little bit of time depending on the size of the video, but I'll go and take a look at, I'll use one of my videos just as an example. And this is the type of analysis that I get back. So it gives me all of the key insights or pieces of the video that it thinks are most interesting to me, to the things that I'm interested in. For every one of them, it gives me a hyperlink to that particular spot in the video. It gives me a summary of what that particular point is all about and an explanation of why it matters to me. Now, if I want to do something with this content, I can select any of these insights and I can do a couple things. I can queue it for my newsletter, which allows me to come over here and actually queue up a whole bunch of insights and generate a draft of a newsletter that's talking about all the cool things that I discovered in the content this week. And I can iterate on this, just like I would with a chat AI to improve this newsletter. Or if I come back and look at my content again, I can also create a LinkedIn post from any of these content insights. And this gives me a starting point for where, I can post some interesting thought leadership content on LinkedIn. Okay, so look, setting this one up was a lot more involved than the other two because you're building an actual application. So there's more structure to define. But once it's running, it's really hands-off. And in this case, the agents are helping me curate the content, but it was also the agents within the Antigravity app that were helping me build this application. And that's the bit that I found the most interesting in a lot of ways. The insight that really made this work for me was I realized I stopped trying to create content completely from scratch. Everything I'm posting now is being built on something I've already consumed and processed. So the agent isn't replacing my thinking, but it's definitely giving me a starting point, a draft to react to instead of starting just from a blank page. Here's the thing about consistency when it comes to creating content. When you're creating content that takes an hour instead of 5 hours, you actually do it. And the best system is the one that you're actually going to use. And here's what I didn't expect when I started building these. All of these three agentic systems, they actually work better together than they do alone. And I didn't anticipate that because I built them slowly over time, never thinking that they would be used together. Think about it. The content summary agent filters what's coming in, so I'm only paying attention to what matters most. That filtered content feeds into my knowledge vault, where the Claude Code agent organizes it and finds connections. Those connections generate insights, and those insights eventually become content. And with the help of my Antigravity app, that I can actually share. Information comes in, it gets processed, and it goes out. The cycle continues. These agents, they're not just saving me time individually, they're creating a system that gets smarter over time. The more I feed it, the better it gets at surfacing what's useful. The more I share, the clearer my own thinking becomes. I didn't plan for that when I started, but looking back, it's probably the most valuable thing that I built. All right, so let's recap these 3 agents, 3 different tools creating one greater system. We have N8N for visual automation. It's great if you want to see your logic as a flowchart. Claude Code for conversational building and creating a team of agents. Great if you want to iterate through dialogue. And Antigravity for building actual applications. Really great if you want a polished custom interface. And you don't need all 3. Pick the one that matches how you think and start there. Build something small, get it working, and then expand. Now look, if this was useful, here's what I'd ask. Drop me a comment. Tell me what tool you want me to go deeper on. Should I do like a full tutorial on N8N? Should I dive deeper into Claude Code workflows or sub-agents? I want to know like what would actually help you. And if you want more content like this, practical AI workflows for people who actually build things, do me a favor and subscribe. I'm going deep on this stuff all the time, and I love to share it. So as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.